Please subscribe.
The 2020 Ford Explorer speaks to in excess of a minor advancement of the Explorer's family meets outside layout, with the primary major update given to this standard, medium-sized family SUV in 9 model years. It pursues a totally extraordinary approach. What's extraordinary? Pretty much everything except for a couple of well-known plan signs. With the 2020 Explorer, Ford has created is a vehicle that is preferred in about each manner over the previous model. The Explorer's alluring plan and its phenomenal ride and dealing with an well-designated inside all factor into this current model's 6.8 rating on our general scale, a number that will probably change when authority crash test information is accessible. The 2020 Explorer based on a crisp back-wheel drive stage that empowers a 200-pound weight drop in base structure versus a year ago. Another age of Turbo 4 and V6 motors gives capacity to a large portion of the lineup, with a 10-speed program transmission for all. The superior ST model gets a turned-up variant of the Turbo V6 making 400 strength. 4-wheel drive and a multi-mode driving framework with rough terrain arranged in towing modes are offered on the greater part of the lineup. Just because you can pick a crossbreed form of the Explorer. The limited hybrid model, fitting, as the crossover is restricted to the limited trim, subs in a 44-horsepower engine unit at the info end of the transmission in addition to a 3.3-liter non-turbo V6. The Explorer's ride is delicate and agreeable, with a hidden solidness to give it sensibly great taking care of. A tranquil lodge and great seating in the initial 2 lines make it a peaceful spot for 4 or 5, regardless of whether you get an adaptation with the seat or chief's seats in the second column. The third line is an alternate story, however, it's difficult to get to and, contrasted with most different models in this class, excessively low and cramped to be agreeable. Yet, the third column overlap effectively, with power on certain models, and the payload floor is level for huge box buys or building supplies. Base and XLT variants of the 2020 Explorer score well in worth. The $33,860 base model incorporates a power liftgate, LED headlights, a 8.0-inch infotainment framework with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto similarity, in addition to security includes that incorporate programmed crisis braking. XLT and limited models venture up to highlights, while the highest point of the line Platinum and Energetic ST variation get the Turbo V6. The 2020 Ford Explorer is a charming-looking vehicle with a durable plan all around. It looks somewhat more car-like than before within, somewhat less like a hefty measured vehicle outwardly. We grant the 2020 Explorer 7 out of 10 for its satisfying extents outwardly in addition to a well-organized lodge structure with more particular completions than is average on the present other standard 3-push family wagons. Outwardly, if Ford made a slip here it's that the new Explorer looks excessively much like its ancestor at first look. That is most likely on the grounds that one of the Explorer's trademarks, its thick side columns that point forward simply behind the second push seats, persists to this age. It will in general be point of convergence when you see the model just because. When you wait on the subtleties more, the Explorer's altogether different extents set in. It's surely less bulbous than the past Explorer and numerous 3-push adversaries and figures out how to look stockier and progressively etched. Contingent upon what you see the Explorer close to, the profile from the side can look the same amount of like a tall square-shaped game wagon as like a brought-down, estimated down rendition of the Expedition, Ford's significantly bigger SUV. The 2020 Explorer has about the very same length and width and ground leeway as its ancestor, and it's not exactly an inch shorter in generally speaking stature. Anyway, it rides on a wheelbase that is 7 inches longer than the past Explorer. Inside the Explorer there's to a greater degree a car-like stream to the structure of the dash and entryway trim. The more vertical direction of the past Explorer's dash and focus stack is gone, and the 2020 Explorer's dash feels lower all in all, with an increasingly layered plan topic. The screens have been moved higher up, closer to the viewable pathway, with atmosphere control vents flanking the screens. The layered look itself is delicate, well-proportioned, and nuanced, with a lot of hard catches for sound framework and atmosphere capacities, in addition to trim that wraps outward from that zone to shape a belt line that, in certain variants, flaunts some unmistakable trim. The 2020 Ford Explorer lineup comprises a base, Explorer, XLT, Limited Hybrid, Platinum, and ST models. Most of Explorers will accompany a base 2.3-liter turbo 4 that makes 300 horsepower and 310 pounds-to-foot of torque. Constrained hybrid renditions venture up to a normally suctioned, non-turbo, 3.3-liter V6, as a feature of a measured half-and-half 10-speed programmed transmission setup, that makes 318 consolidated HP and 322 pounds-to-foot. Platinum variants get a 3.0-liter turbocharged V6 that makes 365 horsepower and 380 pounds-to-foot. We rate the 2020 Ford Explorer at 7 out of 10 points in performance for its great ride and taking care of and balanced arrangement of capacities, including towing and going mad tromping. Of the two non-half-and-half motors, our pick is most likely the base Turbo 4, which gives a lighter, progressively agile feel generally while feeling similarly as energetic at city speeds. Just at quicker parkway paces, and exceptionally full loads, we would expect, does the Turbo V6 legitimize itself. Both non-half-breed motors accompany a stop-begin framework that stops the motor at stoplights and restarts it when you lift off the brake pedal. All models in the lineup incorporate a suite of drive modes: normal, sport, trail, slippery, tow, home, and eco. Snow and sand modes are included for wheel drive conditions. In general, drivability of the hybrid framework was disillusioning now and again, with its inconveniences most recognizable as shivers and hesitation in the 15 to 40 miles per hour range, when moving on and off the quickening agent delicately. The hybrid framework showed signs of improvement the harder we drove it. Ford specialists disclosed to us that with a regular torque converter in addition to the engine, it's aligned to make no penances to drivelines done under the rigors of towing or going 4x4 romping. One unforeseen reward is that the hybrid is the perkiest model of the entire lineup regarding quickening agent reaction, at lower city speeds, where the E-engine does its best work. This crossover framework will voyage on power alone up to around 50 miles per hour, however you need to drive it all around delicately to discover it. Passage hasn't discharged increasing speed numbers for the Explorer lineup, yet dependent on testing effectively finished with the Police Interceptor variant of the Explorer, the top-performing ST should effortlessly hit 60 miles per hour in well under 6 seconds. Pilgrim ST models venture up to a higher yield variant of the 3.0-liter turbo that makes 400 horsepower and 415 pounds-to-foot, just as a firmer suspension tune all around. They likewise have a framework that channels and mimic lively motor sounds into the Lodge. In all cases, contrasted with the past stage of the Explorer into different extensive 3-push family SUVs, the new Explorer has an extraordinary ride and its ride movements feel pleasantly fastened down. It's delicate and quieted, with the basic solidness uncovered in the event that you push more enthusiastically into a corner or progress, or when you barrel quickly through real hurdles or potholes. The stage of the Explorer likewise has less littler movements by and large than inside other 3-push SUVs, maybe the result of its 7-inch longer wheelbase versus a year ago's model. The outcome is less bigger scale bouncing and jumping too. At about, the Explorer handles like a lower sport wagon and is presently the best, or almost the best, in its group for taking care of with body movements that aren't agitated by tight S's or brisk path change advances. Brakes are consoling and sudden brake applications include less of the sensational plunge that can be a normal piece of the involvement in enormous 3-push hybrids. It's important that the Ford Explorer Hybrid makes no note for the forfeit's rough terrain capacity or in-towing ability versus different variants. Ground freedom continues as before, and the hybrid is appraised at £5,000 for towing, versus as much as £5,300 for the Turbo 4 and £5,600 for the Turbo V6. With a without any preparation retry, the 2020 Ford Explorer presently has incredible fit and complete and a design of the Explorer that incorporates an extraordinary driving position and feels perfectly, insofar as you're not in the frustrating third line. We give the 2020 Ford Explorer 9 out of 10 for its abundant traveler and freight space and its seats. We additionally value the meticulous lounge fit and first-rate trap sap. The tight third line is a negative mark that anybody considering the Explorer ought to know about, however it doesn't drop the score in our framework. The Explorer's driving position is currently progressively line up with what you'll discover in German extravagance SUVs like the Mercedes-Benz GLE or BMW X5. In the Explorer, you sit a bit lower in the vehicle, but then the dash and cowl are low enough to bear the cost of a decent forward view. Thigh and back help is useful for the driver, in spite of the fact that we've seen that over the lineup you don't get a similar dimension of customizability on the traveler side. Second push facilities in the Explorer are part between a seat situate, 7 traveler, and 2 chief seats, 6 traveler. We'd go with the last mentioned, albeit the 2 setups offer great solace and enough space to spread out. The third column is the place the Explorer simply doesn't make the grade regarding the grown-up level space found in other 3-push models, for example, the Honda Pilot or Subaru Ascent. Getting into or out of the third column requires some twisting for grown-ups, and recovering the second push seats into position requires more muscle than it should. Be that as it may, it's the mix of a low seating position in addition to next to no room to breathe, even with T.